Welcome back to another video of speedrun analysis. In this video we're going to analyze the current world record of Half-Life 1. This game was beaten in only 26 minutes and 34 seconds by a popular speedrunner in this niche, namely Muty. Half-Life actually has many categories for speedrunning, but the main ones are scripted and scriptless. The biggest difference between these two categories is the fact that in scripted you can bind multiple commands to a single key to perform some tricks. But in scriptless, you are not allowed to do this. This speedrun was completely scriptless, so basically all of the tricks are performed manually. So let's draw out no longer and proceed right to the speedrun. The speedrun starts in the chapter Anomalous Materials, because the previous chapter is just about Gordon riding a tram for half an hour, so there's nothing to speedrun there. You can see that to move faster, Muty is using the most popular trick that probably everyone knows, which is bunny hopping. That's basically a problem of the engine which allows the player to gain speed while jumping and strafing while in the air. Here Muty, before taking the HIV suit, crouches so he can pick it up faster than usual, because usually you have to wait for the capsule to open. Then he picks up energy for his HIV suit, which he will need later, and proceeds to the test chamber. You can see that while approaching the doors, Muty for some reason drops his FPS to low and then back to normal. He does that because Half-Life is an FPS based game, so because of this you can reach the trigger that opens the door faster by lowering it. The game just basically skips a lot of frames, and this trick usually saves no more than a couple milliseconds, but overall it could get you a couple seconds. Here Muty drops his FPS and stands in front of the guard in order to make him turn faster to this weird lock system. Half-Life gets pretty broken when you have more than 25 FPS, and basically at higher FPS the NPCs turn really slow, so that's why he drops the FPS here. Here's how Barney would turn at high FPS. And now one more time how it went in the speedrun at low FPS with blocking Barney. Also, there's a cap for FPS. You are not allowed to have more than 100 FPS during the speedrun because, as I said, it breaks the game and sometimes it could be helpful to skip some levels, but not anyone can have more than 100 FPS. So basically that's a rule in order to make speedruns fair for everyone. Then Muty strafes in order to catch the ladder and skip the elevator, and here's an interesting part. Here's the trigger that changes the level. Muty goes back to the previous level and then to the next one a couple times, which helps NPCs to think faster and move when you push them. Then he lowers his FPS again to make the NPCs turn faster and pushes a scientist to the door. NPCs in this game can activate triggers which players cannot, so that's how we skip the dialogue and open the door. But there's actually an interesting fact here. If you save loadout on the map or you want to use an NPC to open a door, the NPC won't be able anymore to open the door, so basically we'll have to reset the level or the whole run. That's pretty weird and I can't really say why it works like that. Here he has to positionate the NPCs at the scanners, but he can't do that in one move, so basically he has to do this in 2 steps. When the door opens, Muty moves as fast as he can to touch the trigger which will activate the cutscene. That's the part where the speedrunner can chill, because the cutscene usually takes a couple minutes. Here the speedrunner sets up his camera to look at one certain pixel which he needs to perform the trick. The trick is called Object Boost. In Half-Life, when an object moves, the character moves too. So basically while moving an object, we can jump, slide or do something to save our speed. Usually the game speed is not high, but because of the high FPS, the speed of objects rises too. That's what allows Muty to do this amazing object boost, which makes you fly to the sky and touch the trigger that loads the next level. After object boosting, Muty falls on an invisible platform, and then he falls on another invisible platform without taking any damage. What the fuck? Yeah, I said that too. Muty performs a trick named Jump Bug. Basically, if you set a certain amount of FPS and hold duck while falling, and right before the landing you unduck and jump, the game won't be able to calculate your fall damage and you will be alive without taking any damage. That's a dope trick which is widely used by Half-Life speedrunners. Then Muty just has to perform amazing movements, some objects boosting, and take the armor here for one of the next tricks. At the end of this chapter we have an elevator that should move us to the next level, but here Muty doesn't enter it and somehow he still gets to the next level. The thing is that the trigger of this elevator is pretty big and you can touch it while being outside. So Muty just presses the button through the wall and stands in the corner of the elevator to touch the trigger that loads the next level. Here we skip the part where you have to turn off the electricity because Muty took a lot of armor earlier in the first chapter and right before this level, which lets him get through the electricity without dying. The next trick is usually called in the Half-Life speedrun community as Barney Dolbayob. I mentioned earlier that in this game NPCs can open doors that player cannot. So here we take some grenades, shoot the guard to make him aggressive, and throw some grenades to make him run to the door that we need to get open. Boom! We open the door and skipped a big part of this level. The next chapter we've got Hostiles is a joke for speedrunners because they basically complete it in 10 seconds. After exiting the elevator we have to shoot the scientist to interrupt his animation, stand in a certain position to make him run for the door that we need to open, and then throw a grenade which will destroy him. Because you know, he can prevent you from going through the door. This trick should also be performed really fast, because in this room there is actually a trigger that closes the door back, but if you touch it before the door is fully opened, it won't do anything. In the blast pit, Muty jumps into the elevator shaft without using the elevator itself and avoids getting fall damage by hooking on the ladder. Yeah, in this game you can basically avoid all the damage by grabbing a ladder right before the landing. He explodes a grenade which will give him a lot of speed that he needs to save by bunny hopping. Getting speed after an explosion is called damage boost. After taking the elevator, Muty starts to bunny hop in order to gain speed to reach the platform he needs, but here he also doesn't get any damage. Oh, that jump bug, right? No! That's actually edge bug. If you fall and land right off the edge of a platform or object, you can avoid all the fall damage. The game basically just thinks that you're sliding and doesn't kill you. This trick is also performed by dropping FPS, because by dropping it, you have more chances to get the right frame for this trick. Muty throws some grenades to kill the hound eyes that could interfere with him when he comes back. And then he performs one more edge bug which allows him to avoid all the fall damage and skip the ladder. He activates the electricity and gets back by performing one more edge bug. So as you can see, this trick is used pretty often. Muty performs an object boost to skip the electric water and then a damage boost to reach the next platform. He activates the power too, and after that he just casually opens the door through the wall. Yeah, Half-Life is a pretty broken game and you can press buttons through the doors. He kills the tentacle monster, takes some HP from the scientists, and proceeds to the next part of the chapter. Here Muty gains enormous speed in water, which is called water boosting. The water has a push trigger which makes water more realistic. The push trigger is situated on the top of the water, and Muty spams the duck button while in the air in order to gain a lot of speed from this trigger. Here the water is actually broken, and if you get out of it right in the corner of the waterfall, you gain speed which you can use to reach this pipe. After landing, Muty throws a grenade under the box at low FPS, which will make the props from these boxes appear on the next level. Power Up is also a joke chapter for speedrunners. You just have to be good at jumps and you can just jump over this fence and skip the whole chapter. Muty picks up the props that skip through the wall from the previous level because of the grenade I told you about, and then proceeds to the chapter on a rail. And as you can see, the chapter is really on a rail. That's pretty legit. The chapter is not called on a train, you know. Muty uses a trip mines he picked up to climb a wall, and then he just does some amazing bunny hop and object boost to reach the final part of this chapter. The explosive boxes are broken here, so we can basically just explode them without getting any damage. Another edge bug, pick a trip mine and put it on the opening door. Here the doors were opening, but Muty put a trip mine on them which makes the doors automatically close. That helps him to save some seconds because doors close almost instantaneously and he doesn't have to press the button to close them. Scare the enemies with a grenade, press the button through the wall, and let's dupe some grenades for our SMG. If you save and load while an NPC is in the dying animation, with every save load you will get his weapons once again. So you can dupe as many ammo as you want. After that, Muty sets a timer for the rocket, because if you leave this level too early, then the door that leads to the next chapter won't be open. So Muty just shoots a certain amount of times, which is exactly how much time you have to wait. Don't look at this weird animation, Muty just loves to break this game. Another jump bug, and let's proceed to the next chapter. Here you're supposed to crash and fall over the fence, but you can just... yeah, you can just jump out of the train. Muty falls here in this way because if he goes by the stairs, then he will touch the trigger which will spawn the Vortigons. Here Muty once again lost the next level a couple times in order to make NPCs think faster. Then he throws a grenade in the corner which scares the Vortigon and makes him run to the door and open it. Yeah, not only scientists and guards can do this. Muty opens the door and gets captured by soldiers. Actually, during this black screen you can move and take the HP that you've seen earlier. If you save on load during this black screen, it will disappear and you can see that you're standing on some boxes. Muty counts a certain amount of time, loads and saves, and performs a jump in order to complete this level faster. Because usually you have to fall down and only after that climb the boxes. Also, you can notice that these compactors are nothing else than just some trains that you can ride. So Muty makes them move faster to break the box that hides the exit, jumps to take the crowbar, and goes to the next chapter. He uses this little piece of rock to boost through the vent, and after that he has to pass some obstacles that are actually quite dangerous. Here are some water boosts to move faster, and in this section Muty just holds his E button, which for some reason in this section makes you move faster. He climbs the levers while activating them, and with some beautiful bunny hops he skips all the traps and gets to an interesting part. Here he just skips the trap mines by dropping his FPS to 4. What actually happens here is that the game just doesn't count the frames when you actually touch the laser, so you can just skip these traps. In this chapter you have to save the scientists, and one of them should help you to open the door. And unfortunately you have to do this too, even in a speedrun. So Muty grabs a satchel and performs a damage boost to save some time. And after that he kills a soldier to take his weapon and opens the door where the scientists are locked by pressing the button through the wall. He farms some SMG grenades that are dropped by this soldier, takes Ghost Gun and returns to the scientists to make him open the door. It is really important to not have high HP in this section, because if you have low HP then the scientists will follow you carefully and won't get scared by every shot or enemy. Ghost Gun is actually a treasure. It can boost you without taking any damage, and this trick is called Ghost Boost. Muty performs some boost to save time, presses the button to open the path to the next level, and in this level he has to perform a really awesome trick. He positioned correctly and shot himself with gauze while moving in order to get a lot of speed. This trick should be performed with minimal armor, because with every armor point your boosts from explosions, gauze and other things will be smaller. That's why earlier Muty shot himself with gauze in the pipe. A lot of boosts, and finally we got to the most interesting part of the speedrun. This trick is called Maxim IHD, which stands for Maxim Infinite Half Door. Maxim is another speedrunner of Half-Life who is a former world record holder. To do this trick, you boost yourself with gauze to go out of bounds, throw an SMG grenade to scare a soldier which will make him run and find the door to hide from danger, and when the soldier is near the door, Muty throws one more grenade to make him open the door. Yeah, that's basically how AI works in this game. When they're scared, they go to the nearest door to hide in another room. When the soldier opens the door, Muty gets stuck in it, and usually in Half-Life you die when you get stuck. But this door is special. Its damage value is -1. So basically instead of taking damage, you get HP. In this section you can farm a lot of HP, and that's what Muty does right now. He takes something around 1500 HP, which he has to count because after getting 255 HP, your HP counter will go back to 0. But the HP will still be stacked. This door should be exploded with a special interactive weapon, but Muty just lost his ghost gun and shots in a certain pixel where the door gets destroyed in one shot. In Half-Life 1 there is also a weird mechanic that allows you to trigger teleports, doors and things like that with the Hornet gun. So here Muty opens the elevator and instantaneously uses the Hornet gun, which makes the door close immediately and load the next level. Some other amazing boosts, close the door with the Hornet gun, and let's go to the Lambda core. In this part Muty shoots the scientist with gauze through the door to make him get scared and run to open the next door. After that Muty loads a grenade, gets in the water, explodes it and teleports to the next part of the level. In Half-Life, when you are in the water with a certain FPS and you explode a grenade or a trip mine, you can skip through other walls. Muty once again shoots an NPC to make him hostile and open the door. Then he throws a grenade to make him be scared and open another door. And after all of this, he boosts himself into the teleport, and by using the Hornet gun, he activates the trigger and gets to the Zen. During the transition he loads the ghost gun, which will give him a huge boost, and right before touching the ground he performs a jump bug which makes him avoid any fall damage. Then he throws a grenade to open the butterfly's cage, activates teleportation things and prepares for the next chapter. Now you can see the Ganache time save. Before loading the next level you should lower your FPS, save load on a certain frame, and by doing that you will make the boss move faster. and this trick helps Muty to save another 1 second. He fights the Gonarch at 21 FPS because with this frame rate, the Gonarch will turn faster. After dealing enough damage to Gonarch, Gonarch will run to the next part of the boss fight. Here Muty uses Ghost to deal enough damage, and after this Gonarch breaks the net that blocked Muty from the next part of the level. He uses some trip mines and satchels to break the part of the floor that was supposed to be broken by Gonarch when he dies. And by positioning it correctly, he boosts himself with an SMG grenade right in the teleport upon the loading of the next chapter. During the Interloper chapter, Muty just has to perform some boosts and beautiful moves, so there's actually nothing interesting in terms of tricks. And here's the final boss fight. Muty breaks all the crystals with the ghost gun, shoots some SMG grenades into the boss, and during this he rotates around the boss to prevent him from performing attacks. And finally he boosts himself with a grenade and shoots the last bullet into the head of the Nihilanth. And that's how Muty obtained the world record of Half-Life 1. This was definitely an amazing run with an amazing time that no one could beat for more than 2 months. If you guys have other questions about this speedrun, don't be shy and ask them in the comments. You also have to watch this video if you're interested in how to perform some of these tricks. I have a separate video about almost all of them. Thank you guys for watching this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in another one.